more than enough. This is gonna be a pretty unorthodox kind of presentation because we have the slot for two people, but we are gonna do it all together. And in fact, um, well, I don't know if it's gonna be very academic or not. There is the first part we are gonna talk and we are gonna try to explain some concepts. But well, in fact, we have here something like the contents of this presentation. So there is an introduction. There is another section that we call the music of the West, in which we will explain these ideas that we have about how we need to explore the music and the connection to the American West. But the heart of this presentation is the third section, the examples, in which we will stop talking and we won't try to look sophisticated or smart as we all do when we come upstage. And what we will do is play some music and talk about this small sample of music that we took here today to sort of illustrate the ideas that we explained before. And there are some final conclusions, which in fact, we have no conclusions at all. In fact, the conclusions are a quote, and you always tell the students that you don't have to use quotes when you are concluding your work. Well, we did just what we tell the students not to do, okay? And we finished with just a quote, but anyway.
Yeah, in the same way that we are scholars, you all scholars are dealing with breaking up with assumptions on the West, and we want to break up with assumptions on presentations in conferences too. So we'll deconstruct a little bit the system.
Yeah, and that's more or less the introduction, okay, very short. So what we wanted is just to combine what we hear in this conference about Western studies with what we know about music studies, okay? This is kind of the foundation of what we want to do here today, okay?
And also what we like. I mean, it's really a treat
yeah,
to
we
be able
said,
to
what
talk
the
about
hell? We want to do something
No,
that
but-
we like. Now, you know, it's been kind of overwhelming to organize all this conference. So what the hell? I didn't want to come here and show what I do. Instead, I wanted to serve and have some fun with this guy. Okay, so
We could also forget about the questions at the end and do the questions in the middle. I
Yeah.
don't want, we want questions, but please interrupt us anytime because we're going to talk about music that's, well, some of you is from your own cultural background. So if we say things that do not apply, please, yeah,
yes.
challenge us. All right.
By the way, the guy in the photograph, this weird guy with the mustache, this is John Prine, who died during the pandemic. Okay, a great musician. Okay, anyway, so we still have some academic part to this, okay, so that we don't look so punk. And the truth is that we want to share this with you because we believe that music brings to Western studies new perspective and dialogues. Still in this ongoing discussion that we have worked for years on the contrast between mythic or romantic visions on the American West and the authentic or the real American West. Also how it takes us with issues related to popular culture. It was pretty nice that we had Gala Kenner before us because she also talked about popular culture. And in fact, we are using a picture later that she also used. And I know that Gala is very, very interested in how popular culture has shaped our identities. And we believe that music, it also takes this into the traditional questions that we discuss when dealing with the American West and Western culture.
Yeah, we definitely think that music, or I personally do, has been like looked down on a little bit, or not being totally ignored in studies in the American West, and we definitely think that it's a perspective to take into account. I mean, in the end, music is something very popular, real, and the approaches that music has all the takes on the American West are varied and multicultural, coming from all over. And it's not just how the American West influences music. It's the other way around. It's what music says about the American West, and how it's not just portrayed, but how can it contribute to to this definition. Yeah, we always try at every conference, but never completely finish, right?
And that's exactly how you spoil our conclusions, okay? Because the quote in the conclusions is just talk about the fact that to a certain extent music has been ignored in Western studies, okay? Or probably ignore is too hard, but at least sometimes we skip the fact that it's something more than just soundtracks to movies. Okay? But yes, he's right, as always. And then we also thought that it takes or brings complexity and diversity to these Western questions that we hear in big conference like this. And there you have well, a lot of things that we usually apply to these discussions, and we think that we can, as I said before, get new approaches to these questions if we use music for it, okay? And then we decided to use this transoceanic conversation, but you can use transnational, or what he was talking about when he mentioned interculturality, okay? This dialogue or this conversation between the two sides of the pond, okay? The fact, and this is gonna be a very important part in our presentation, the fact that Western music is also very popular here in Europe, and how this invites other approaches to the topic, okay? How, or what David was saying before about outsiders and insiders, how you can bring this new notion of Europeans playing this music or using these Western tropes, and how it brings new...
Yeah, major and minor. We discussed the major and the minor bands, and
and that's more or less what we have in the next section, that the one we call the music of the West. This is kind of a diagram. It looks better in our computers.
I can try to tell you a little bit about it, but what we will ignore here is country western music, mainstream country western music, because we all know that's the music of the radio soundtrack of the American West. So we're focusing more on like what's around it. That's country and western, the way it came out. Then it started spreading into blues and rock, like in I would say in a bit after the post-war, with bands like Flying Burrito Brothers, even the Rolling Stones, and then up into the 70s, we started to have bands that from the rock and roll, I would say, genre, that incorporated American Western themes and aesthetics and turned them around, as we will see, like the famous, like, it's New American Rock. In Spanish was the NRA, but let's not get confused with that, right? It's like Long Riders, Jason and the Scorchers, all those bands, Big Farmers, Lone Justice, all those names already. Also, Mexicans and Chicanos like Los Lobos and Cruzados, The Unforgiven, all these bands. And then even if we go down to punk or cowpunk, but not necessarily cowpunk, bands like the Super Suckers or Tex and the Horseheads, even the Violent Femmes from up north. Yeah, so all these bands absorb ones and for all these Western themes somehow, and turn them around in so many ways that they really deconstructed what it's up there. Mainstream, traditionalists, global stars, from all the way from Jimmy Rogers to Shania Twain, or what's her name? This girl, who's the one that gets the most? The blonde girl gets all the prizes. Oh man! So who's the most famous country star? Which is
Taylor Swift.
Taylor
Swift. Exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's her. So this is just this would be the assumptions on the American Western music, and this would be the rest. All right, Alt Country, all the way to Wilco, Drive-By Truckers now, etc. And it's just John that's just going on and on and on with the bands appearing all the time. There's even it's called Americana music because it comprises of bands that play different things with different instruments, but in the end, they take all the time elements from the American West. So it's too bad it's not so clear. Yeah, and this goes like global, not just of course. As we said, it's not just American bands; it's American, European bands. A lot in Britain. There's even an Americana Music Association, and that's part of the U.S. Americana Music Association. So,
yeah. So the idea is to discuss the expectations that we have or the preconceptions that we usually have about what Western music is. So we always think about the singing cowboy, Jane Autry, Roy Rogers, or the Western swing, the cowboy songs, or these popular soundtracks with Ennio Morricone and so many others. And of course, as he said, the mainstream country music. And the rest, because there is a lot of music in the Western coast. Okay, all country, as he said, cowpunk, rock and roll, punk music, hip hop, even the Beach Boys. All this was in the West Coast. So, in fact, the array of music that we can find in there, and in fact, he already mentioned something that we want to discuss. It's not just about the music. It's not just a musical concept. It's also that some of these bands, what they do, whatever the genre that they are practicing, sometimes they use Western stereotypes or Western metaphors for the sake of their music, okay? Even though there is not, we don't see this straightforward connection, okay? So the idea was to explore here today how we can, from these or from these guys that we would surely say, definitely say that they are Western, to the hip hop rapper name that I can't even repeat, but Gala mentioned it, Lil Nas X or something like that. Okay, how we came from this Western traditional music to contemporary revisions of this music. Okay, so we see, for instance, in this album by Dave Alvin, with a wonderful title, West of the West. He published it, I can't remember now the year, but what he wanted to do, Dave Alvin, maybe you know Dave Alvin because of the Blasters. What he wanted to do was to make kind of a recognition of the music being done in the American West, especially in California, because Dave Alvin is from a small village in California. So if you take a look to at the list that he chose, you see Merle Haggard, who is traditional country.
He's the only country musician in the list.
Then you see Jackson Brown, you see Tom Waits, Richard Berry. You also have David Hidalgo from
Los Lobos.
Los Lobos. You also have John Fogerty, Creedence Clearwater Revival. Or somewhere in here is Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead. So in the selection, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys. So you see that the selection is not really based on what we traditionally relate to Western music, okay? And as he was saying, there is then a process of revision of how music is related to or represent the American West. He mentions the Lone Riders. By the way, Sid Griffin was with us here like 3 years ago talking about how they use this Western space and the outfits, everything, even though they were doing kind of a different music sometimes.
Yeah, they were a band from the South, actually, from an area around Mississippi, so very, very southern and very traditional, with traditional backgrounds. And what they did, playing this type of music, they immediately moved to California, which is interesting. They did a Western move, and they stayed. Well, they have this famous song "Looking for Lewis and Clark," which is already a reference, but it's metaphor. He explained, does all this, and he played the song here. But if you see the outfits, they just look four guys coming out of a saloon after a poker game, and they stayed like that. They still play. They play again now, and so. But the themes and the songs and lyrics have very little or nothing to do with what Western mainstream music would
Yeah,
be.
and that's the same case that we can discuss when we talk about Jason and the Scorchers in here. In fact, you see that Jason Ringenberg is dressed like a cowboy, but then we have a heavy metal band member in here. So they messed up all these references. Or the Beat Farmers, Tales of the New West. Okay, so in fact, what you find then in the lyrics are kind of universal topics, or
to explain a little bit their own, I would say, contemporary environment, so to speak. The Beat Farmers have a song which is it says the ghosts from this Western land are going to rise against English sense. Then they go on talking about how unhappy they feel to be living in that America, which is like a political statement, actually, using the West also as a campground for the music
and even in mainstream country music, we find all kinds of different versions, like Mojo Dixon, who usually makes these lyrics very political and not the kind of story about being heartbroken and getting drunk, okay, that you expect from country music, okay? Or we have bands that are using the name of the American West and making different portrayals of what we have in the American West, urban, different from the traditional stereotypical images that we have of the West. This is a very recent example that he didn't know about this girl. I knew her accidentally, because he came to the Basque country as an Erasmus student, and he fell in love with Basque culture. And then she went back to Oregon, and she lives now in this farm, and she's happy there. But she usually releases, sometimes he talks about the Basque diaspora and how she misses the Basque country and Kalimoto and drinking in the streets with her friends. You can see there a picture with the Chapela, and in the others picture with the Stetson, whatever. And I think it was last year, she released this album that became huge. It was even reviewed by Pitchfork, which is a very famous magazine, but it's usually dealing with indie music in the United Kingdom. And they don't usually review folk or country albums. And she has become big, but he doesn't really like this fame. And it's kind of the first song in the album is called That River. And when you see the video, you can see that even the Olenchero, maybe you foreigners, you don't know about the Olenchero, but it's kind of a Basque Santa Claus, okay? And he appears in the video, and you see people dancing Basque traditional dancing. And so she embraces this idea of being Basque and Basque culture, but as an outsider, okay, as somebody who is in fact a Westerner, okay. So it's kind of a very special example.
Before we move on to this, I wanted to say one last thing about what he said about the lyrics. I think that both lyrics and music are an essential part of this detachment from traditional Western music, because these bands in the 80s, I would say even in the 70s, they came out and said, well, we have these outfits, we can also wear cowboy hats, but we play differently, we use different instruments, we just plug in distortion pedals, and we talk about different things. That's the main thing, and that's still goes on. So that was the main, I think. Yeah.
Yes, I just realized that I haven't said her name. Margot Silker. Yeah. Anyway, so the next few pictures are just to show you this other more superficial dimension. bands that used Western outfits or Western tropes, but in fact they have no relationship with Western music. I mean, this is a heavy metal band, but they make all these references about.
Yeah,
Usually, the stereotype that they use a lot is the cowboy image. Okay.
Yeah, they're from Sacramento, California. They must have some, yeah, of course, cultural background, but they are.
But we also have, for instance, Pantera, the famous heavy metal band, Motorhead. They also use these Western outfits.
British.
In fact, yes, this is a pit outside London. Okay, it's not Death Valley or anything like that. Sam 69, they also used all these Western outfits. Even Bob Diddley, the guy who invented rock and roll, he also have a, I don't know if it is an EP, or maybe it's not an album.
I don't know. It's from the 50s, right?
Yes. Or even in indie music, Modest Mouse, Silver Hughes, mainstream music, Cyndi Lauper. She also have these references to the West. So Sonny and Cher. So we see how they always go back to the West, and they use these sometimes in a, as I said before, in a very superficial manner. But we have many examples, and we also have the European examples. Okay, this is, for instance, Rory Gallagher, who was Irish, and he also has songs in which he talk about the American West, and the rest of these examples are from Spain. Okay, bands from Spain, and how they also play these Western. In fact, this Milana has been here twice to talk about this and how they use Western references in their music. And this was an album that they released in Spanish, is Campo y Piedras. If you translate this to English, it's country and rock. Okay, and they make this. They have this idea that Extremadura and the southwestern area in Spain is kind of the American West in Spain. Okay, and they make all these connections.
Yeah, like an analogy.
Yes, and
Talking about from the West.
Yes, and talking about bandoleros as if they were how is this word?
Like gunslingers.
That's it. No, it's another word that I was trying to use, but I can't remember now. And well, the desert. I mean, Extremadura is a very arid region. So, Moonside Wagon. They are from Vitoria. They also
The name itself, Moonshine Wagon. Yeah, well.
Well, Moonside, the wagon is, in fact, they have a wagon and they tour all over Europe and all over the world in this wagon.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember one day that they broke down the wagon. So I went to this concert and they were asking money from us just to repair the wagon.
Wow.
Yeah. We are closing this conference with a concert on Wednesday. 4 years ago, this was the band who closed the concert. Well, I chose them just because this guy with the mustache is one of my best friends. But the fact is that they made this funny show in which they, how is the name in English?
What?
El Vendedor de Elixires.
Oh, yeah, like the medicine man in the Western.
So when they are singing, they are playing this role like trying to sell this medicine. And so they also use these Western tropes.
Aesthetics, yeah.
This is a band from Spain called Los Locos del Oeste, the crazy men from the West. Okay, so
if you see these bands and you don't know where they're from, they could be from anywhere.
yeah,
right.
Jineta y los Apocalípticos, again using the same. Or here you have some examples of bands from Spain, just concert posters, and you see the references to the American West. So this is this transoceanic conversation that we were discussing before. Or tomorrow after Nick, which is a beautiful plenary presentation, we have another one by Oscar Avendaño, and you see why we chose Oscar to come talk to you, because you see here also in this album all the references to the American West that he also uses in his music. Okay, so these were all examples of how we have this conversation between the American West and European bands, and it would be very rich to explore all the edges that we find in this dialogue. Okay, Anyway, the examples. You ready for music?
But do you have any questions so far? Because then you will not remember anything. You might want to.
No, they
While I
were
tune
all
the guitar.
just thinking about the fact that we promised music and we keep on talking and talking. Nick has a question.
The movie The Blues Brothers.
Yes.
The Blues Brothers.
When the bus is broken down and they go to this one club and John Belushi asks, "What kind of music do you have?" And the guy says, "Oh, we have both kinds, country and western."
Exactly. That's when they play there. Is that when they throw them all kinds of stuff?
Yeah, okay. So we chose 8 songs, and they are like in 4 different groups. Well, you'll see how we organize this, okay? So our first example is these guys who had come up before. You know who these guys are? Sons of Pioneers, yes. So this is our first choice, and it's kind of the example of the traditional Western music that we always relate to. I'm not gonna play it, okay? So we have to wait for him. So anyway, yes, the first song that we chose is Along the Santa Fe Trail, which is a classic. And it illustrates all these traditional Western music that we coge esta. Quiero que me calle yo.
No, you got to talk. Well, I'm not going to play any songs. I'll just give you a little bite of them, taste, as I had to learn them all between yesterday and this morning. I only know one of them. So, are you going to join in, maybe? Okay, you are going to join now, right?
I have to do that.
Sure, you have to. Help me out here, man. Do you hear the guitar out there? And hey, all right. That's something like this. One, two, three, now. Angels come to paint the desert nightly when the moon is gleaming brightly along the Santa Fe Trail. Stardust gather all along the highway on a rainbow-colored highway, skyway, along the Santa Fe Trail. Beside you, I'm riding every hill and dale, while shadows hide you like the purple veil that hangs by the tail. I found you and the mountains that surround you, all the walls are built around you along the Santa Fe Trail. All right. This is a song, I think it had an impact on mainstream music at the time, because a lot of people covered it later, but during in the 40s, Glenn Miller was playing this song with his orchestra all over the place. So it became urban a bit. So it had some kind of,
Yeah.
Nothing to say about this song? How do you relate to this song?
Sorry, my mic is not working.
Okay, sure.
You knew this song, didn't you? I mean, it's classic. You can, I guess it's in a lot of Western shows and movies. Okay, and I agree with him about what he said on the impact. And also, we were discussing about the meaning of the lyrics because it seems like a love story, but we were talking before and saying that we think it's more about going west really and the love that you find in this kind of challenge of discovering the west rather than about any woman. Okay, or that was your theory, not mine.
What? Yeah. Well, the theory is the way you can make as many theories as you want on music, but it's the way or how you see songs going from one place to the next, and sounds also,
So second example, it's also kind of a classic. Okay, the guy, the name, Johnny Cash, and I didn't choose this one with the finger, which is the one that you also see so many people with T-shirts and yeah. So in fact, the song that we chose is not his.
No,
it is kind of a classic, but all through his career, he did a lot of albums with cowboy songs, and he had this album since the Ballads of the True West, and in fact, they were very romantic idealizations of the American West. Okay, but he has a few albums dealing with this issue.
Yeah, if you think of Johnny Cash, what kind of musician or music do you feel? Was he a rock and roll? Did he play rock and roll? Did he play country? Was he unique? So I think the answer is in the question. He was hybrid and multi.
Personal Jesus. And
So, that's what. So this shows already it's a song that was taken by someone who was not like already mainstream. So this is the first one that's maybe.
Yeah. So that's the choice. Streets of Laredo. That he made famous, but in fact it was riffs, I think.
Yeah, he was already. Is that a tune? Okay, I'll try this one. What version you want?
Cautious.
Well, as I walk out the streets of Laredo, as I walk out Laredo one day, I spied a young cowboy wrapped in one linen, cold as the clay. Can see by your outfit you are a cowboy. These words he did say as I boldly walk back. Come and sit beside me, my sad story. I'm shot in the breast, and I know I must die. We beat the drum slowly, play the five lonely, play the dead march as we carry him along down the green valley, lay sod overhead. He was a young cowboy, and he said he done wrong, he done wrong, he done wrong, he done wrong. All right. Yeah. Well, you can do all the clapping together at the end. It'll be like more impressive. It's all right. Honestly.
So anyway, this.
Yeah, fine.
So anyway, these were the two choices to kind of illustrate this traditional part. Okay, and we move forward to what we can find later. And the third example is from one of these bands that we mentioned before. Okay, you recognize them. We talked before about Jason and the Scorchers. The one with the hat is Jason Ringenberg, and what was it in the 1980s? They contribute to this movement or whatever called cowpunk, and how they were blending some topics that we relate to country music, but with urban spaces, drugs, being young and want to break everything, and this music that or lyrics and topics that we don't relate that much with Western music.
Yeah, they came from, or they're all from a traditional background, Nashville, Tennessee, and I think they could never break up from traditional music. So you can hear like in their albums as a acoustic song, like it's nearly cowboy song, and then mixed with rock and roll tunes that have like powerful killer guitars, but always with this Western thing in the background. Although in this song is a very
Also the performance.
yeah. The performances were. I have a personal story with Jason on the Scorchers. I'm a good friend of Jason, and I brought him over to Mallorca to play a few times. And one time when they came with Jason on the Scorchers, they invited me on stage to sing a song with them, and I was really something. The song we chose is I chose it because of the title. It's very Western. It's Bible and a gun. Immediately comes, we think of those preachers with a little Bible with a cutout gun and the gun inside, or Bible and a gun. So, but to me it relates a lot to Cormac McCarthy's like I'm blank, the No Country for Old Men, which is like not the movie but the book is, I think it's nearly an essay on evil. So this, don't know why, evil that some people have inside them. So that's what it relates to. And some songs like from Bruce Springsteen, or even the movie Badlands and all. I think, yeah. I don't know if I can play it. There's a full moon out tonight, and it's shining down on me, and in that purest light any fool could see that this highway is paved with sorrow, and every mile is lined with pain. The sun comes up tomorrow, you'll be just as far away, and I hear the whisper soft and low every mile around, and I travel through this world of woe with a Bible and a gun, with a Bible and a gun. I don't mean to hurt nobody, I don't mean to do no wrong, but something's out there got me, and it's pulling me along. Now I hear a whisper soft and low through every mile around, as I travel through this world of woe with a Bible and a gun, with a Bible and a gun, with a Bible and a gun, with a Bible and a gun.
So I mean, these guys began to open a road that he has mentioned before the Flying Burrito Brothers, and we can also talk about the Birds and so many other bands that began to kind of renovate Western music and country music, and the many combinations that you can do between country and other genres like rock and roll. Okay, and Jason and the Scorchers is a good example of that. And obviously, and this was a must because it's kind of the favorite one, not just of both of us, but this ReWest research group that we have, because Willie Vloden has been with us a few times, well, just once.
Yeah.
I think. And we were involved in some research being done on his books, a beautiful book edited by Neil, and some other stuff. And so Richmond Fontaine is always a band that has a space whenever we do a conference. And we think that they contribute very powerfully to how we see all these Western topics being complicated in music. Okay, so our choice for today is a song called "The Water Wars" that they released in this album, which in fact were they published. I mean, the second picture, the one with the songs. This is from the real album that they released, called 13 Cities. And they were so inspired because they went to Tucson, Arizona to record the album, that there were thousands, many other songs that they didn't record. So just a year after they released the album, they recorded an EP with more songs. And in this second album, there is a song that we love, which is "The Water Wars," that I usually use in my classes, in which you see one of these Willie Vloden's stories about a guy who is, high, and he wants to get drunk, and he steals some money from a friend, and he starts running away from one city to the other, taking cheap jobs, and he ends up in prison. And but all through the song, in the chorus, in the refrain, you see these beautiful words that Willie uses to talk about the West from a more general, abstract way. Okay, I mean,
You already told the whole song.
sorry, yeah, I'm also a spoiler.
To me, one of the unique features of Richmond Fontaine or Willie Vloden is his narrative music style. So it comes maybe from the tradition of Guy Clark, even some of the stories by Johnny Cash. But he's very, very personal. And sometimes I use the lyrics of some song to my students. I don't tell them it's a song. I edit it like it's a narrative, and they don't know it's a song. And then when we analyze it, we play it, and they are surprised. So it's just very, very powerful. Storyteller, so much that he became a writer. There's someone here that knows this song very well, so I hope I don't mess it up.
Roomway was sleeping, took his keys and $100, headed out till his car broke down outside a tombstone. Went on a bender, ended up in a can. No use calling anyone. They gave up on me years ago. West is sprawling from the Northwest Central Valley away. I lived in Las Vegas. Then I made my way through the Sunbelt states. The West is sprawling, is falling through as hard as I am. Did up the back of a truck. The guy had two black eyes. He was drunk and laughing at an Indian casino. Maybe they'll finally get their revenge. Took a drink and he laughed again. West is sprawling from the Northwest, went to Valley away that lived in Las Vegas. Then I made my way through the Sunbelt states. The West is falling, The water wars have just begun. Wait until the aquifers are done. And the West is falling. The West is falling. It's a nice song. I wish I could play it.
It seems easy, but it's very difficult. Willie has a very particular way of both writing and singing, and it's kind of like his novels. It seems we were talking, Neil, and the other day that it seems like you read one of his novels and you see, oh, I can't do this, but then you try and it's impossible.
The problem with the songs is that he writes first verse, chorus, second verse, chorus, and there's not one chorus that has the same note, the same chords. Even the chorus or the verse, it changes chords all the time. So it's like learning the chords from top to bottom. At one point, the easiest thing is just really learn the song by heart and try to go on, because I think that's what he does. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we are running out of time, so we better hurry. The next two examples are from, we could say, two mainstream authors, a woman and a man. Okay, so we wanted to show how also in commercial music we see famous musicians who use Western tropes and topics, as we have been repeating all the time. Okay, so the first example is from Lucinda Williams, and an album. I think that the album and the song, they have the same title, called West.
Come out west and see best that it could be. No, you won't stay permanent. Come out west and see. Climb up on the rocks, stretch out in the sun. Close my eyes and let imagination run. Who knows what the future holds, or where the cards may fall. But if you don't come out west and see, you'll never know it all. Sleep out in the desert, under the stars above. Keep making an effort to wander in your love. Knows what the future holds, where the cars may fall. If you don't come out west and see, you'll never know it all. You'll never know it all. You'll never know it all.
Okay, so that was Lucinda, and the man, I guess you know him, is Bruce Springsteen, and the song that we chose is coming from The Ghost of Tom John, this famous album that he released a long time ago, and the song is Highway 29, okay, which, by the way, was a song that Willie Vloeding and Toni, they played together here for another thing that we organized a few years ago. Okay.
Yeah, this is another narrative song that, well, it's like a movie. They made a movie out of the song. You know, The Indian Runner? They made a song out of the Nebraska album, a song of Nebraska. So this is exactly something like.
Slip on her shoe, she was a perfect size 7. I said this was walking in the store, man. She crossed her legs and then We made some small talk. That's where it should have stopped. She slipped me her number. I put it in my pocket. My hand slipped up her skirt. Everything slipped my mind. That little roadhouse on Highway 29 was a small town bank. It was a mess. Well, I had a gun. You know the rest. There's money on the floorboards. Shirt was covered in blood and she was crying. She and me, we headed south on Highway 29. And this little motel, the air was hot and clean. Sleep the sleep of the day. I didn't dream. I woke up in the morning, washed my face in the sink, went into the Sierra Madres towards the borderline. The road was filled with broken glass and gasoline. She wasn't saying nothing. It was just a dream. The wind comes silent through the windshield. I could see the snow sky pines. Closed my eyes and I was running. I was running, and then I was flat.
No, casi.
Okay, so we have two more examples. These are the two last ones, and they are just to show what we said before, this transoceanic conversation. Okay, so these are two examples, people who wrote songs about the West, or inspired by the West, or with the Western touch, and none of them are coming from the American West. So the first example is the one that appeared before, Rory Gallagher. You know, it's a big name in blues music, and kind of a god for many bluesmen. And the song that we chose is Out on the Western Plain.
This song goes a little bit back or before all these bands we mentioned, so I think this approach is very, very, very traditional. It's like a topic and topical, and I'll just sing a couple of lines, but I think it was a song for him also to play some nice string exercises. It's an interesting song, but it's just, I can really, I don't know.
When I was a cowboy out on the Western Plain. When I was a cowboy out on the Western Plain. Well, I made $500,000 a hard cattle range. Come a cow, you can come a cow, yip, kiki, yeah. Well, it was the greatest battle ever on the Western Plain. When me and a bunch of cowboys ran into Jesse James. Well, those bullets were flying just like a shot of rain. Come a cow, you can come a cow, you can, yeah. Come a cow, you can come a cow, you can, yeah. Come a cow, you can come a cow, you can.
Okay, so as he was saying, this kind of it's kind of a traditional lyric. Maybe you heard the name of Jesse James and many other mainstream authors also in the 20th century and the late 90s. They keep on writing on the same stuff. Okay, like even Neil Young and so many others. They keep repeating the same traditional images that we relate to the American West. Okay. And the very last example is from a band coming from Spain, and obviously the choice was very easy. Okay, so the last song is gonna be by Toni himself. Okay,
I obviously didn't put this picture in there.
Yeah.
You can find a better one.
No. So this is coming from his latest album, Trans Am. I think he even has some. Well, he's gonna be in the book presentation later, and he will tell you about this album that he released like a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah. I
No,
treated myself.
2022.
Oh yeah, last year. Yeah. But it's fairly new in these times of pandemic. An album lasts 4 years, but yeah, it's an album that comes from a road trip from Sacramento, California, all the way to New York, 6 weeks, an old Cadillac that I bought very cheap and I sold. And I wrote
And you talk about the song.
but I'll talk about this in the presentation anyway. This is just a song about friendship. That the relationship to the West is maybe, it's like the idea of a trip to Mexico, but it could be a trip to anywhere. It's about the little moments you spend with the people you love. I'll just play a little bit, okay? Don't fall asleep here.
Oh, the rain from that summer flooded the memories of stages in life too long gone. And the bars so attractive, a ghost on the highway, repose of desire and thirst. A twist in the weather pushed us into something barely expected and new. No house to look into, no books to dive into. Sometimes no one should be alone. It was late night Lolitas and frost margaritas kept us aside all through dawn. Unnerving distractions, too late to complain, we just go. Oh.
That was it. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
So it's already 6:30. Okay, so we should be conclusions. As we said, it was just a quote by David M. Robel, who is one of the few guys who have written about music and the American West. Robel, Richard Aquila, and a few others. And well, it was more or less to say again what he said at the beginning, that we usually don't pay attention to music in a deep way, and that as we have tried to demonstrate here, we believe that it can bring good approaches and new opportunities to this ongoing debate that we have about the American West. Okay?
Exactly. Let's not forget what music can tell us about the West.
Yes, that's it.
Thank you very
Rock
much.
on, okay?